live stream from Work Life. I'm Evan Patterson, and this direction, oh my God, I can't remember if it was right or left. Listen, I had coffee. I'm on the struggle bus. That's not even a bit. That's just me being honest. It's a man who can introduce himself. Go right ahead.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm John Alarcon, one of the co-founders here at Work Life. So quick tidbit about Work Life. We're all about helping people figure out their personal happiness equation. So the things that bring them joy, fulfillment, drive happiness in their life. And we want companies to pay for those things. So we built software and processes for companies to run their incentives, their bonus programs, their rewards programs, our software helps those things happen instead of getting out your cars or going to coffee. So that's a little bit about us. And back to you.
Awesome. Well, we have a special guest we're about to bring on today. We're talking about setting yourself up for success, fantasizing versus manifesting versus preparing. A lot of us mix up dreams and goals and fantasies all the damn time, myself included, the pop collar, the Kelly Black live on LinkedIn. John, when you presented the things that you were talking to Leslie about, as I, give away this guest's name as we go forward, this was the thing that jumped out at me as the topic that we should definitely go with, because it's something that I've known about, but haven't really heard much from an expert. Did you have a similar reaction or no?
Yeah, and I think, this is kind of the time of year when people start to think about, like, what did I accomplish this year? What am I looking forward to next year? And I have some thoughts on it, coming from the HR space as well, just kind of how people leaders view this. But I think it's an important time of the year to talk about, like, hey, what are things that you think you want to do but don't have a plan to do, and how do you kind of set yourself up for success, and how do you kind of go into next year with a plan. So I'm stoked to have Leslie on, which again, blowing the surprise here.
We're really good at keeping surprises.
Yeah,
I hope your kids like, we knew Santa Claus wasn't real 4 seconds into living.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm really excited to have Leslie come on and speak to some of these things, especially just with her background, with her certifications, with her expertise. I'm thrilled to have her here today. So, yeah.
And that's before we bring in her bomb.com.net.co.uk/signup.html sense of humor. So, without further ado, I don't even know if I'm saying that phrase correctly. Let's bring on Leslie Venetz herself. Hello. Oh, that's not how that.
Wait, I'm gone again. Oh, I'm back.
Welcome to the show, Leslie. How are you?
Thanks. Hi, I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being had. You and I go back longer than we care to admit on the internet. And I have been a massive fan of you. You are like one of the first 4 or 5 people that I followed ever on LinkedIn. And one of the reasons why I got into content creation on LinkedIn, because I was like, look at this woman doing all the things. I want to do the things too. And then I realized I didn't want to do the same things. So you're in sales, I'm in marketing. But you are also one of the salespeople that I love, because you call it the BS in sales, and you help make it a better profession for everybody. And you also, I don't know if you do it intentionally, but you're really good at teaching salespeople how to be kind to themselves, because I think salespeople don't get enough coaching on that is a job, or your mental health, your ability to set goals, and ability to know what motivates you is a make it or break it.
True. I sure try. So thank you for calling those things out.
You succeed. You don't just try. I want you to make sure that you know that. I know some people who try. We'll save that for Across the Pond and Over the Rainbow, my other podcast. So Leslie, John mentioned briefly that you have some certifications in goal setting. I didn't know that even existed. So I was today years old when I found out that was an option. So if you could send me how you get said certifications in a DM after this, I'll be greatly appreciative of that. So talk to us about, let's get down to the meat and the potatoes here. Why is it so important to understand what a goal is?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that inspired this topic, Evan, is how many people I talk to that just genuinely don't understand the distinction between what they think they are setting as a goal and what an actual goal is. And I think most goals for folks fall into the sort of like positive fantasizing or manifestation buckets, and they aren't really setting the person up for such a direct line of success. So I have a ton of certifications for grow goal setting, which is a formula like anybody can get them. Like I have a lot and I'm really good at it, but it's accessible to anybody if you want to go get a certification to help you better goal set. But the gist of it is, how do you create a plan? Like, how do you create a plan that is achievable? And then how do you hold yourself accountable to pursuing that plan? And it sounds easy when you say it out loud, but everybody listening, anybody who's ever tried to achieve a difficult goal knows that it's like, an easier said than done sort of situation.
I'm always fascinated by the people that, and maybe this is because you get, as you live, you get the wisdom, but the people that I'm finding that are very successful, they all are really good at actually setting the goal, because it sounds like setting a goal is creating a plan. If I'm understanding correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I host that business book club, and the book that we're reading for December is a book called Grit. And
I've heard of it.
By Angela Duckworth. Oh my God, it's so good. Highly recommend it to anybody.
I'll wait for the movie to come out.
Yeah, anybody that is watching this LinkedIn Live that wants to join can join as my guest for free as a thank you for spending time with us here today. It is like one of the core tenets of the book. She talks about what grit really is, and how it is like the consistent tenacity in pursuing something, like even when it's hard and even when it's boring. And that's what it takes to achieve a goal, right? And I think a lot of us will set goals and maybe they're a bit unachievable, so we kind of set ourselves up from failure for the beginning, or maybe we just get bored with it, so we give up and we sort of tell ourselves it wasn't that important anyway, or we get stuck maybe spending too much time in the fantasizing, manifesting stages, and we don't take that jump to creating that clear plan that we can execute against. But you're completely right, Evan. Like a core tenet to having a real goal, something that is achievable, is having a clear plan on how to get from A to B.
I might need to redact my joke about waiting for the movie. It sounds like I might want to learn how to read and then read this book.
It's
I'm the world's first illiterate community marketer.
Well, I think I'm really glad. I love that you brought up that book, Leslie, because it's one of my favorites too. I look at it actually from a parenting perspective. And it's what's really interesting, I think, about that concept of resiliency is, I have 3 kids. We have a 4th on the way as well. So like we have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. Yeah, so we'll have a 4th in June.
I didn't know you were having a 4th one coming soon. Congratulations on the new DLC.
Yeah, this was the big announcement.
Yeah, we've been telling people like here and there, but and so when we think about resilience, prior to this, it was all about like, okay, how do you kind of hit your business goals and stuff, but it's actually a leading indicator of success in children, and that was part of kind of the premise of the book, is that yes, resilience is being able to work through challenging situations, do the mundane tasks that aren't that exciting but get you to where you want to go. And I think what's really interesting about that is that before you get to that, like as a parent, it's really tempting to like drill that into your kids' heads. Like, no, like practice the piano more, or, do extra 20 baseball swings or whatever it is. But if you're doing that in something that you don't care about or don't love, it's actually worse. And so as a parent, what you want to do prior to that is expose your kids to things to find out what they have a passion for or what they actually start to enjoy. And where you see those hints of interest is where you can then drive effort into those things, because that joy and kind of enjoyment of that thing is what will develop resiliency, because they'll be able to overcome the challenging parts of that task, whatever it may be. And so I think it's like an interesting premise to resiliency where it's like, gosh, well, first, I think one of the things you need to assess is like, is that thing that you're pursuing a worthy pursuit? Is that something that like aligns with your core values and what you care about and the things that you want in order to like justify that resiliency? Because sometimes we get stuck in seeing like resiliency as a good thing to strive for because someone posts about it, or because like that's a common like societal like virtue, right? But then it's like applied in the wrong direction or serving someone else instead of what you actually care about.
Ooh, like Angela has a passion plus perseverance equation
Yeah.
that's worth everybody's time to Google. I think that chapter is like maybe chapter 3 or 4, and my favorite part of that was a call out that often we think passion should be obvious, like it should be a lightning strike, that a light bulb moment. And to your point, John, much more often passion is found by exposing ourselves, or in your example, our children, to a lot of different things to see like what we gravitate towards. And interestingly, the chapter I was listening to this morning when I was brushing my teeth, getting ready, washed my hair for this. So that's a big thing.
More than I did.
That's a big thing.
I did too. Right?
But
I'm soon going to be in that lucky boat as well.
Oh my God, I need all my hair. I need more Olaplex in my life. I need to stick in these locks. But the chapter that I was reading this morning was like very much about how to build that resilience in ourselves. And it was about building neural pathways. And the example that Angela was talking about was building it in children. And that one of the biggest favors that we can do for ourselves, but preferably earlier in life, is fail. Is like fail kind of miserably, because it creates the neural pathways that later in life prevent us from falling into like a position of helplessness, because we know that we can do hard things. Like we know that we can fail miserably, and we still have the control to rebuild, to try something else, to try a pivot. And that it is, according to the science, much harder to do that later in life if you already have that sense of like learned helplessness from childhood. But it's never too late. The science is pretty clear that we're always in control of the ability to rewire our neural pathways.
It's I think kind of what you're hitting on too, and you can probably speak to this more, is that implied with failure is that you tried something, right? And part of the difference between like say fantasizing versus preparing in action is that you could actually fantasize about a goal or direction without actually doing anything about it. Right. And so I think maybe if you can touch on, maybe the gap between like, okay, what is the difference between fantasizing and preparing for goals and having a plan, and like, the failure that comes in with that. Is there anything there that you can shed some light?
Yeah. So I think it's a continuum. Fantasizing can go two ways, right? Like there can be negative fantasizing and positive fantasizing, and both are teaching our brain. And so if you are fantasizing and it's negative outcomes, I mean, get therapy, but maybe in adjacent to that, like really, really work hard to catch yourself in those thoughts and pivot them to positive what if thoughts. But what if it all went in my favor? So it's the way we kind of have it lined out, it almost seems like maybe fantasizing and manifesting are bad and goal setting is good. That's not actually the case. I think it's a continuum, because positive fantasizing is rewiring your brain. Like it is teaching your brain to bias towards believing that you are going to achieve that positive future state. So it's
a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing, but unfortunately a lot of people stop there. And that's not enough, right? Like,
yeah,
positive fantasies about the things we want to achieve, that's not going to ultimately get us there. So I think on that continuum, the next step is the manifesting. That's maybe where you are saying it out loud. you are journaling about it, right? Like you are still biasing yourself towards the positivity, but you are like speaking it into existence, which is again great. Like there's nothing, those are all positive things. If you saw how many crystals were in my house, you'd be like, you okay, sis? I
am. That's not why we're asking if you're okay. No, you're amazing. We love you.
I think like the last step on that is the goal setting is the preparation. And something like, I mean, we can like go into goal setting in detail, but I think one of the things that I really struggled with, and I'd be curious to see where you folks have felt, like how you guys have felt about this, is that I am somebody that I am really gritty. Like I would consider myself very gritty, which is great. But the downside is that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Like I am always going to deliver, which means that sometimes I should actually leave things in like the fantasizing phase for longer instead of being like, I got to do this and I got to do this now. Like I create this sort of false sense of internalized urgency that means I put more on my plate. And because of my ADHD and my personality style and just like who I am, once I get to preparing, once I get to that final stage of the continuum, like it's happening. Like I will deliver it. I will deliver it 100%. So I think there's also an argument for giving yourself permission to like keep things in the positive fantasizing phase until it's the right time to move it down the continuum.
I remember hearing something about that from, I like that you mentioned therapists earlier, because I've been talking a lot about this with my therapist. And I sometimes told her, I was like, she's like, has anybody ever told you might have too many goals going on all at once? And she's like, you're 29 years old. Why are you trying to do it all right now? She's like, so I kind of had to like figure out like what is really going to move the needle the most in my life. That's going to be the goals, and everything else that I still want to achieve. Like right now, I need to get this figured out, so those are even options for me, or those are less painful or less difficult to achieve because I've achieved this other goal. This goal in itself is a prerequisite to these goals. Stuff like that, or by achieving this goal, I'll be able to know if these fantasies or manifestations are even goals that I want to have in the first place. So that's kind of how I heard what you said. Is it reminded me of having that tough conversation with myself of like, and I think you may have saw from my content, everybody told me like, I just got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. If you want to have an identity crisis and refigure out what your goals in life are, get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder in your late 20s. So I've been doing a lot of learning about everything you just said, and what you just said really reminded me of what I'm going through right now, trying to figure that out. So thank you. I feel less crazy.
My pleasure. I like one of the coping mechanisms I use to treat my ADHD as a superpower is I'm really, really rigorous about my to-do list, which I know for other people who are ND, they might be like, no, to-do list. But I keep a like do, delegate, delete framework. So like I keep my to-do list tight. So it's not just this overwhelming list of things. And if something's on there for more than 2 weeks, I have 24 hours to either do it, like hire somebody on Fiverr to do it, or I just have to delete it because I just have to admit that it's not that important to me. And thinking about like the fantasizing piece, like you, Evan, I put too many, like I'm a high input person. I always want to do this and learn this. And those are all really good and positive things, but not everything belongs on my to-do list. Yeah. So I actually stole this idea from both Megan Mishak and Luigi Presidenzi. Then I will write it on a Post-it note if it's something that maybe snuck onto my to-do list, or maybe I catch it before it actually gets written on my to-do list, and it's a not now, but it's not a not ever. And so I'll write it on a little piece and I'll just put it in the back of my journal, or like put it on my manifestation board, which is right out of frame over here. So it gives me that permission to fantasize it, to fantasize about it, to like, oh, this is a future, this is a maybe, but to acknowledge that because it's a not now, I really can't rent space in my head to it. I can't escalate it to like the goal setting preparation because that is a distraction. That's not a value add.
That's interesting. I have a question for you, Leslie. And I'm curious. You mentioned like this kind of continuum.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you an example of something that we hear sometimes when we work with some of our users at Work Life, and I'm curious like where this kind of like comment fits on the continuum, like where that person is at. So we pretty frequently do what are called inspiration sessions. So we'll invite in either like a team from like either our customers, one of the teams in their companies, or like a team that wants to do an inspiration workshop with us. And and we're actually starting to do these for women in sales coming up in a couple weeks, which is really exciting.
Like Alexine's, like women in sales
Yeah,
group.
exactly.
Hey, oh, that's so
exciting.
My
Yeah.
first session will be highlighted by the fantastic Ashley Early.
Yes,
so
totally.
My work life.
Oh my gosh, pulling out all the stops.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the kind of the premise of that is like, hey, let's come in, let's talk about like the science of happiness. Let's talk about goal setting. Let's talk about our feel framework, which is kind of like the tangible examples of kind of a meaningful and fulfilling life. And a unfortunately common comment that we hear at the end is that like when we ask for feedback, people are like, thank you so much. I never felt like I was worthy enough to be able to think this way, or I never really felt, and this is not their exact words, but it's like I didn't really feel like I had permission to like pursue these things, or I never really gave myself permission to think about these things. And it's always kind of like in that context of like there was something telling them that like they didn't deserve that, or they weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah.
So where on that continuum like is that person in terms of like fantasizing versus manifesting versus preparing? Because I'm thinking of it as like, how can we help people kind of break through that and like get to the point where they're like making a plan for their goals,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So many thoughts on that. I mean, I think the example that you just gave, John, like they're a step before fantasizing. Like they've not even broken down that mental wall to get to the point where they believe they deserve to fantasize about that positive future state. Like I think they're almost a step before that. I mean, read some Brene Brown maybe is a good step for them. Honestly, she has this book that we read. We also read it for Business Book Club called The Gifts of Imperfection. And my favorite part of the book was an entire conversation about wholehearted living. I cried during the book club. Like it hit me in the feel so hard because it was something I've struggled with, that I struggled to believe I was worthy just because I am a human who exists. And I spent a lot of my life and my career hustling for that worthiness, believing that if I just worked a little harder or made a little bit more money or had a bigger title or did this thing for this person or had this more prestigious whatever, I would be somehow more worthy. And it's such a bullshit narrative. Like it's such a false narrative, but it is so common. And it sounds like that is something like that's, in the umbrella of what some of those folks are feeling, where like they are not worthy of believing that they deserve abundance. So first off, it sounds like they really, really need your workshop, and that workshop sounds amazing. But the second part of that is that if they have a clear goal, I would try to help them develop deep roots. Like I heard this analogy from a woman called Arlen Hamilton, who's amazing. She is a gay Black woman who runs a VC fund. Like, get it. And I got to hear her speak recently, and somebody asked her how she does it all. And she said the key is to have one tree, and I can have lots of roots and branches, but I can only have one tree. And I teach that in my goal setting workshops as having like a key result area, and then asking yourself, is this important? Like, not generally, a lot of things are important, but like, is this important to me in the context of achieving my key result area? And that requires you to kind of be a bit selfish. And I think some people that comes way too easy to, but a lot of people that a lot of people that sort of like giving themselves permission to put their needs and their key result area, it like that is a struggle for them to even give themselves permission to get to positive fantasies, and to give themselves permission to say, like, what are the roots that I would want to grow just for me.
Well, next time you call me out, use my name. How dare you?
We both look at his box.
I felt attacked and supported simultaneously for the last 45 seconds. I like what you're saying. I just put a note on my calendar to rewatch this episode and follow all the names that you just gave, and learn how to read so I can become more active in the business book club. Yeah.
Or listen, we're big fans of audiobooks as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess and John just said something, and you said something that kind of like triggered me in a good way, not a bad way. I'm one of those people so one of the biggest reasons why I won't read sometimes, which is in the whole like giving yourself permission thing, is I feel stupid for buying the book and the audiobook because I need to see it and hear it, not just one or the other.
Yeah.
I need both. I can't follow along to the audio without the visual, but I can't pay attention to the visual without the audio. Because when I was in online high school, when you wanted to read something, there was you click a button, and I read it while it was being read to me. So I became dependent on reading and hearing simultaneously.
Okay.
So I always felt like, oh, I'm being financially irresponsible by buying this book twice.
Right. When really the narrative is, I am so in touch with the way that I learn best that I am duly investing in my success by purchasing the book and the audiobook to make sure that I increase my retention of this valuable information.
Yeah, I just learned that about 30 seconds ago.
Cool.
Yeah, so I guess he's going to be back on your book club and actually doing some damn things for once.
I love it.
I got to stop giving myself shit for doing that.
I can only do like 15 minutes at a time. Like I kind of have to Pomodoro my audiobooks, because otherwise
I don't know what that meant.
Pomodoro is a time management technique where you do 25 minutes on a super very specific task, 5 minutes breaks, 25 on, 5 off.
What does pasta sauce have to do with this?
It sounds delicious.
It sounds like a sauce.
But I have to do that with audiobooks. Otherwise, I start daydreaming. And then it's like 10 minutes later, I'm like, huh.
What chapter are we in?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, I guess also, like, I shouldn't be surprised. I liked what you said also, like, you learn these things by trial and error and through exposure, right? You learn these habits about yourself. Yeah. So if people want to use me as an example, I'm realizing, why is this brand new information? Because I told you about the high school thing. I can't even watch a podcast or listen to a podcast. I have to watch the YouTube version of the podcast. I can't just play it. I don't remember anything. Yeah,
like and there's actually to have two. Like it sounds like you need your brain to have like watch and listen or read and listen. Yeah,
it's the and. So now I feel less silly. So if anybody wants more reasons to follow what Leslie's talking about, I just learned something about myself, and I'm being paid to do this. So Oh, okay. Jacob coming in with the fun facts. It's better than the fun fact about sour cream that I use in my other show that we've been using for 9 months. But
I hope this is a true fact. Is this real, Jacob? Is it?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay.
I trust anything Jacob says. Jacob is on the comments of my other show often, and Jacob is Ashley and I's fact checker, so we never have to worry if we're being ignorant. Jacob will let us know if we're being ignorant.
I also love fun facts. Jacob, can you please come back by the end of the episode with a fun fact about a flamingo, a possum, or a raccoon? I'll give you 3 of my favorite animals.
Bonus points if you can find one fun fact that encompasses all 3. I don't want to know if I want to know that one.
That's it.
Leslie, I've another question, kind of, if we can maybe talk about, a lot of your work is in the sales context, working with sales teams, training. I know I've learned a ton from you as a founder, doing like early sales. One of your comments that I love and like aha moments for me, like building work life, was TAM does not equal ICP. Because they're very different. One you use for VC conversations, one you use for like building a real business. And so, I know you do a lot of work with sales teams and stuff. And this concept of goal setting is really prevalent in sales, for obvious reasons. It drives growth at companies and all those things. But could you talk a little bit about like how you see this impacting sales folks, like why it's important in that context, and like, if you want, like some examples of how you see this play out?
Totally. Okay. So first, maybe I'll define grow, because that is the framework that I like generally base a lot of my teaching on. Because all we're really doing is, well, a lot of people probably know SMART goals.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I grew up on.
Like listening and watching are nodding their heads right now. So that's the gist of it, right?
I think I know.
Okay. So what we're really looking for when we goal set is specificity. Because the more specific it is, the easier it is for us to know if we've done it or not done it. We're looking for things that are firmly within our control. So an example in sales is that if you're an AE paired with an SDR, and that SDR is responsible for setting all your discovery meetings, a good thing to build into your goal would not be 10 discovery meetings a month. Because you're not responsible for that. So we really want to create those preparation pieces, those like milestone pieces that will help us achieve our end goal by staying focused on the things that we are in control of. We want it to be measurable. So that kind of goes back to like the specificity, like did we do it or did we not do it? Like, did we make 10 calls? Or did we not make 10 calls?
Yeah.
We want it to be time bound as well. That works for our bigger goal as well as like our smaller milestone goals we're going to build in there. I'm also a huge fan of a goal setting practice called backcasting, which kind of goes back to like the fantasizing manifesting, where you say your goal as if it's already happened. Like, it is December 31st, 2023. I've achieved my goal of $230,000 in revenue because I did. So you say the goal like it's something that you've already accomplished. And what have I missed? So it is specific, it's measurable, it is achievable.
Within your control.
Yeah, achievable. I was like, I definitely missed one important thing. Yeah, so it has to be feasible, right? Like, I'm not going to set a goal that's like, I'm going to be an astronaut next year, because I know I'm not.
Like, you gotta go back and get your physics degrees and stuff.
Like, I'm right. Like, I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to become a professional basketball. Right. Like, James Clear actually talks about this a lot in Atomic Habits, because there is a like the what about people all the time that are like, well, what a minute, and it's like, you got to set a goal that is within your like not just skill set, but like within the realm of like possibility. Like, let's be frankly honest. Like, there are goals that I can set because I am like a middle-class white woman that's child-free. Like, I have different layers of privilege and I'm not a primary caretaker. Like, I can accomplish things that maybe somebody else can't because they have different life circumstances than me. So be honest, not just about like what your like mental, emotional, and like, I guess, like, you know, physical capabilities are, but also like be reasonable about what you have the bandwidth to achieve in whatever timeline you've set for yourself. Like pretty much, I think moonshot goals are bullshit. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's cool, like fantasize, keep that in like the positive fantasizing bucket, But like moving a moonshot goal all the way to preparation is a pretty surefire way to set yourself up for failure. There's actually an entire science behind it. And then they coined it the what the hell effect. You'll see it a lot. Yeah, you'll see it a lot in January when people are like, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week. Or like, I'm going to stay on this diet and only eat 12,000 calories a day. And then they miss one day at the gym, or they splurge one day on their diet. And then they're like, well, what the hell? I've already missed this one day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that bucket analogy because it's so important. I actually learned this a lot working with Travis, our co-founder, because he's very much like the visionary. Like, we have to rein him in a lot. And I have to be really conscious about like, sometimes, like a lot of times we need that, especially in an early stage startup. We have to like be conscious about being creative, about like having a big vision and striving for those things. But a danger to our business is letting some of those things that should be kept in kind of like that fantasizing bucket get into the, all right, let's plan to attack it bucket, right?
Yeah.
And I would think that a lot of startups maybe actually make that mistake, because there is like a risk to, and I've been in those sales cultures where it's like, we did 5 million last year, let's do 50 this year. And it's like, that sounds awesome on paper, but like, is that realistic? Are we willing to put the resources behind it? Do we have the time and bandwidth to do it? And so all those things. So I'm loving that kind of way you're framing it around like having the buckets where it's like, don't squash that dream, like, but keep it where it belongs for now. And as you're going, like, create some goals in kind of like the preparing phase to kind of help you get there. Anyways, I love that call out and how you're thinking about the continuum.
Awesome. And one of the, like in GROW, the O stands for either opportunities or obstacles. And so when you're goal setting, the whole part of that process is to be like, have we done this before? What worked? What didn't work? Who else has done this that I can reach out to and learn from, partner with, that can help me leapfrog? What potential obstacles might stand in my way, and how should I prepare for those? And like, maybe you uncover at that point there's so many obstacles that you're not ready yet, or maybe it's not something to do on your own. You do it in partnership with somebody else. And so it helps transform or like evolve that goal into maybe what was building from the fantasizing and manifesting into having really honest conversations with yourself. Like, the goal isn't bad, but I'm incapable of doing it without support. Or like, the goal isn't bad, but unless I'm able to learn from XYZ people to leapfrog my progress, my timeline isn't going to work. Like, the goal isn't bad, but whatever the situation is. And so it helps you evolve the end point that you're going to, or that like deliverable you're tracking to make it more feasible. And then the W is, it depends what structure you're looking at, but it's like way forward. But I call it will, like the will to win. And this echoes back to your comments about like passion. If the passion isn't there, it does not matter how great you've done at setting your SMART goal or how well you've gone through your opportunities and obstacles. Like, if you don't have the will to win, you will give up along the way. Like, you can do everything else right, but there has to be a reason. And you asked me about sales goals specifically, John, and like, here's where I think a lot of sales leaders get it wrong, is that they think the will is like, this person wants to make, $100,000 in commission. The $100,000 is not the motivator.
Yeah.
It's if I make $100,000, I can buy a puppy, put a down payment on my house, pay off my mom's car, go on this vacation, put my kids in this private school. Like, it's the thing that, it's the passion for what the money can be spent on that creates the motivation.
Yeah.
And I think very few sales managers and leaders, and maybe even like reps, take the time to really put the, like, what does this allow me? What will this change about my life? How will this impact my life? Front and center, so that they're tracking towards that passion and that sub goal versus like a dollar amount.
Yeah. Love that.
I know a lot of people that and I like that you're talking about from both directions, because I know a lot of people that they know why they want the money, but they don't know how to like take that motivation and use that as how they get there, you know. So I like that you're attacking from both angles. I think because I'm often in the boat of I know why this matters to me, but I've done not a great job of figuring out how to get there part.
Yeah.
Which I think is like why sometimes I will struggle when I meet people that you can tell don't really know their why, right? Because it's the antithesis problem. And then I do feel for the people, and I've been the people, as the pot calling Cut a Black Live on LinkedIn, you know, of that are not in either. You know, they don't even know both. So those are the people that, and been there, currently am kind of getting out of it. You know, please see a therapist for that one. That is something a professional can really help you with, I think. I think everybody should have a therapist, honestly. I really wish that was more accessible in this country. I think that should be like everybody should have a GP and a therapist at a minimum. Like really. So,
that could be a whole nother live.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I like what you're saying about the smart and the grow. I've been furiously taking notes like I'm in school again. You know, I'm going to walk away from this episode caring more about this than anybody in the audience. But
you
that
hit on
makes a lot
something,
of sense.
Evan, which is like the significance piece.
Yeah.
Like I think all humans crave significance, and we all kind of get it from different places. Like if I'm being totally honest, like even after all my time of trying to like divest my worth and my identity from my job, like for me, they're still very closely tied. I think
and to a point that's healthy.
For me, it is. For other people, maybe not, but maybe they're getting that significance from being a parent, or maybe from their church community, or maybe from philanthropic work, right? Like that significance can come from a lot of places. For me, it's like a mixture of a lot of things, but without understanding your why, like what makes you feel that significance in your actions and in your life, it's sort of hard to do all of this. So like maybe that answers your question of like when those people come to you and they haven't given themselves permission to even step into the positive fantasizing phase, like maybe at the very end of this fantasizing versus manifesting versus preparing is significance.
Yeah.
There's
like I will.
Yeah. Well, quick plug for work life. That's actually one of the things that we find kind of working with like employees is that you know, it's really funny when you ask people like, hey, what are some of like your important personal goals? Like there's always like 30-40% of people that just have no idea how to answer that question. And it goes back to kind of the example I gave earlier. Some people just don't feel like they have permission to, so they just never thought about it. Some people don't know where to start, or like where they like what is a good goal? Like, what do you mean? What should I be focused on? And some people have very clearly defined, like I want to do X, Y, and Z and stuff like that, right? And so we have this kind of spectrum of people that have varying life goals and things like that. So it's always really interesting to see. One of the things that kind of we use is a framework from positive psychology. It's called PERMA, and you know, one of the letters in the acronym is meaning. The M is meaning, and it's an important kind of pillar of having like a fulfilled life, or what they call a fulfilled life. And so and that acronym, P is positive emotions, E is engagement, or like finding flow, enjoying the things that you do. R is having meaningful relationships. M is meaning and purpose, and then the A is achievement. And so we actually kind of have an assessment that's borrowed from positive psychology to help people kind of very quickly in 5 or 10 minutes figure out like, well, where do I kind of stack up, you know, self-assessing myself on those areas, and is there an area where maybe I can place time and attention to you know, basically create some personal goals in those categories to help move the needle on personal happiness. And so it is like very much like meaning and purpose and your why they're a key part to like personal happiness. If you don't have that, you can only go so far.
I love that.
I actually need to go back and look and see what percent of people actually like where people actually stack rank on that one. It'd be interesting to kind of dig into the data on that.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. And you know, like when you were talking about like maybe 30-40% don't have that clarity, and then it's sort of on a spectrum from there, it also made me realize that an important call out for goal setting is the opposite side of people that get hyper focused on a goal. And in fact, they get so hyper focused, they stop fantasizing about like the what ifs, and they stop asking, is this the right goal? Does this goal still serve me?
So tunnel vision, basically. How does one keep themselves in check on that?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like mini milestones and mini celebrations and having those check-ins with yourself. I mean, it's probably going to be a little bit different if your goal is like, I want to buy a house, which means I need 10K for a down payment, which means I need to make this much in override, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's probably unlikely to change. But if your goal is like, I want to become a chief revenue officer by the time I'm 40, that's like a much, much longer term, sort of like more like fluffy, ambiguous goal. Build as part of the milestones check-ins. Like maybe every 6 months or every year, one of the mini milestones you do is validating that your goal is still right for you. So I would I would like build that question in. Like, one of the activities that I'm going to do annually is ask myself, do I still want to do this?
Yeah. Now, this could be the quarter life crisis talking, but what do you do when you're, okay, so like, great, you do the check-in and you realize that this is not the goal you want anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And this is where I tend to struggle and flail around a bit. Is, okay, well, I know that's not what I want anymore, but now I've got nothing in its place. Like, I've got this empty spot where a goal used to be. Right?
I'd argue that you don't have nothing because you have your why. So you're not abandoning your why. You are changing the journey, like you're changing the path. You're going to go on a different journey to get there. So you need to walk down a different path. So it's like, I mean, or you can do what I did, and I just left my job in corporate America and abandoned my dreams to become a CRO completely because it was eating me alive from the inside out. And now I run a 6-figure agency working a 4-day work week. Don't think that advice is super applicable to most people. So what I would recommend.
You're one of the motivations why I became fractional, actually, because for similar-ish reasons, I would say emphasis on the ish. Yeah.
But like, let's also be clear, like for me to get to this point, like I have a huge financial runway. I don't have I'm not a primary caretaker of people. Like there's some layers of stuff that allowed me to make that choice. I'm not saying that everybody should just be like, deuces, Bob, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But I do think that if
I'm chuckling like my partner Bob. I can't wait to like see
Bob. Sorry,
like,
Bob.
Deuces, Bob. He's like, what did I do?
When I was using Chet as my person, like on TikTok, that I would like make fun of as a sales bro and call it Chet. And then finally it's like Will Aitken or somebody reached out to me and he was like, do you have like beef with Chet? And I was like, who the is Chet?
Oh, Chet. I know.
And then I was like, I am so sorry. I've used that the entire time. And he's like he's so kind, lovely person. So I switched to Trent.
Okay.
Yeah, if anybody knows Chet Lovegren, is that how you pronounce his last name? Yeah. He's an amazing human being. Yes.
We're putting it on the record that that's not what I was talking about.
We love Chet Lovegren, the sales doctor. He's fantastic. Yes. He's great.
Chet. But I think for the average person, the question that they would need to come back to isn't like, oh, I'm abandoning it all, I'm blowing it up. It's like, what actually matters to me? What is that like, that inner fire, that inner knowing, or as I have on my manifestation board, what is the wild wisdom that sings in your soul? And then figure out how to start pathing towards that in a different way.
That makes sense. It's something that I've learned also. I often tell my friends that are kind of going through the same, us late 20s, late 30s people are all going through our life crises, right on cue. And my friend who goes by the loving name of Sharky, who is the name comes from Left Shark from Katy Perry's Super Bowl commercial. If that tells you everything you know about Sharky's personality, because his explanation is, look, that person managed to make it on the Super Bowl. I would call it quits and half-ass it too if that was the peak of my career. I could retire after this, so I'm just going to mark it and cash that check, and I'm done. So I'm like, that is a great way to look at life. Anyways, but no, Sharky Austin tells me, he's like, well, think about it. If you did the best you could do with the information you had at the time, doesn't that mean that you figured out what you wanted to do and what your whys were and all that fun stuff with the information you had at the time? So the fact that you're like older and therefore, not everyone, Leslie and I can give a few examples in another podcast, but as you get older, you should in theory know more, not less, like some people. And so like, therefore you will know more of like, oh, that was a good goal with the information I had about life and myself and what is my why at the time. So it wasn't wrong. It was, I just now know more about who I am, my options, the list goes on. So I think a part of unblocking yourself, as John mentioned earlier, and you talked about also, is giving yourself that permission to know that you're always going to be absorbing new information about yourself and the world. And like, there will be options that either you didn't even know about or didn't even exist because of technology changing, right? What if you get sick, loved one, like, life happens still. So I think I want to make sure that everyone watching this, and myself included, remembers like these aren't meant to be in concrete as much as you are supposed to still actively work towards them. You need to give permission for things to ebb and flow and change as needed and as wanted.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I as I think many people know, I'm a huge nerd and I read a lot of fantasy literature, including going like pretty deep down the Brandon Sanderson rabbit hole. And there's a quote.
Ashley Early just started screaming joy, by the way, just so you know. I can hear her from the Netherlands. Yeah.
There's like one of his series is the Stormlight Archives, and I don't know which book it is. I think it's Way of the Kings, and the main character says something along the lines of like, hypocrisy is just a man in the midst of changing. Which I think is kind of...
That's also my drag name. Yeah. Man changing, not hypocrisy. I think
it's like a beautiful concept, because I think it can be really difficult, or at least it's something that I've struggled with, that I like will look back on like the way I used to manage, or a sales technique I used to use, or like whatever it is. And I might feel like shame or embarrassment or regret. And it's like, girl, you were doing the best you could. Like with the information or the tech stack or the training, whatever it was, to your point, Evan, like you were doing the very best you could at the time, but you have continued to embark on this process of positive fantasizing, of imagining better future outcomes for yourself and the impact you can make on those around you, and like speaking it into existence and then doing the damn work to make it happen. And the work is the hardest part. And that was what I loved about this topic we picked today, that like nobody's saying that positive fantasizing or manifesting is bad. Like quite the opposite. The brain science says they are good. You are rewiring your neural pathways to imagine yourself in a better positive state. But the brass tacks is that if you really want to achieve a goal, you have to create the plan and then put in the work to action it. Or else it's just a hope and a dream. It is not actually a goal.
Well, there's our sound clip. There's our sound bite. Leslie, thank you once again for coming on this. First of all, I think I've learned a ton here. Now I'm going to be like, okay, I already have a note to ping you when I'm not slammed about the book club. Can you send me the link to this book that I'm supposed to be reading now? Miss Venetz?
The 3 books that I mentioned, just in case anybody wants to listen or read, was Grit by Angela Duckworth. And anybody's welcome as like a thank you for joining us today to join that one for free as my guest. And I also recommended The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown. And then the third one was Atomic Habits by James Clear. And I would recommend all 3 of them. They're all very, very worth a read.
If somebody had to pick which order to read them in, which would you suggest?
If
Speaking
you are
for a
not, yeah, right. If you have the emotional bandwidth, Brene Brown, I would read Gifts of Imperfection first. If you are looking for something that is more tactical, because maybe you are just overwhelmed because it's the holidays, start with Atomic Habits.
That one felt personal. That felt like it came from deep down. That one felt a little bit. Are you okay? Look at that.
I am. I'm just over here living my best life.
Listen, I want to be you when I grow up.
I also want you to aspire to that because it's pretty sweet over here.
Awesome.
Listen, there's a reason why I hang out with people that are smarter than me. If I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room, or I'm at Charlie Chicago and Broadway in Boys Town. With that being said, you know where your camera is. Please pitch. What are you doing? What are you working on? What should we be spending our money on? How should we be finding you? How should we be following you? All that fun stuff.
Oh my gosh. Well, find me on LinkedIn and TikTok. I post daily on LinkedIn and I post on TikTok and YouTube like 2 to 3 times a week if you prefer video content. Always with captions so that you can both watch and read if that is your vibe. If anybody does want to join book club, it's just patreon.com/business book club. So pretty easy to find. And the first it has like some sort of free trial. I don't know. Go to the website, figure it out. But maybe the most exciting thing that's coming up, shout out to Work Life for sponsoring my last masterclass. Thank you very, very much. It was a wild success. The plated mindset lunch that y'all sponsored was like a fan favorite. The reviews are in. And we're doing another one in April.
Yes.
Chicago.
Love it.
And the co-host for that one is Jen Ellen.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
No.
I will be coming to that one. And if you do not send me the information, I will cry.
How crazy. It's going to be amazing. We're just going to go so hard in the paint, like skill sets plus a bunch of mindset work. Like we start the day with a meditation, like what Work Life was so kind to partner with us on. And the last one was like a mindset lunch where we talked about overcoming limiting beliefs and then absolutely feasted. So I'm jazzed out of my mind about that. And we have our fun fact to wrap us up.
I'm scared. Jacob says flamingos, raccoons, and possums are all native to Peru, and therefore, if you visit Lake Titicaca and play your cards right, you might encounter all 3. Bonus points! Jacob,
oh my God.
I love it.
Unfortunately, I was in Peru and went to Lake Titicaca last year, spent a whole week there, and I saw none of them.
Didn't play your cards right, apparently.
Didn't play your cards. I was going to make that pun, but I figured the dad joke manufacturer himself.
I'm wearing the hat. You got to give it to me. You got to give me some space.
It's literally in his job description, as you can see on the screen. As mine is conversely not a dad. Listen, thank you so much, Leslie. I am a huge fan of you. I have looked up to you for quite some time, which is ironic considering I'm probably a half a foot taller than you. So, even though I am pretty short myself.
I got that tall person energy. That's what matters.
You certainly do. John, any final words before I play our outro video?
No, just again, Leslie, thank you so much. We're obviously huge fans of you and the work that you're doing here at Work Life. Just can't sing your praises enough. So this is awesome for me personally. Sounds like for Evan and hopefully for our listeners. And I'm excited to kind of be sharing these clips and kind of like this content ongoing. So
thank you again so much.
Exactly.
I'm just going to go to the book club going forward. Screw therapy. I'm kidding. All right. Thank you, everybody. Peace out. Bye.
See you later.
Do you know what motivates your employees to perform at work? Do you know what inspires them and keeps them engaged? Many leaders don't. Sales managers have to constantly think up creative new sales incentives, and HR teams strive to help people feel valued, appreciated, and happy. Millions are spent on various initiatives, but it's mostly a guessing game, and it often misses the mark. More than 45% of people feel that their needs are not met at work. 34% of employees are actively disengaged, and 29% are actively looking for a new job. How do you tap into people's intrinsic motivators to drive performance? How do you reward people in a way that meets their individual needs without breaking the bank? WorkLife has the answer. WorkLife is an employee motivation and individualized incentives platform. We help companies link business objectives directly to their employees' unique intrinsic motivators to drive business performance. By tapping into what truly motivates and inspires people, companies can create a win-win scenario just by spending differently than they are now. Let's start with employees first. WorkLife uses positive psychology to help employees identify ways that they can improve happiness and tap into what truly inspires them. Our science-based framework guides employees through a process of uncovering their motivators, setting meaningful goals, and tracking their progress towards them. In order to provide a distinct path toward making their goals a reality, we enable employees to open a work-life balance, a special bank account dedicated to storing sacred money for the passions and pursuits they've identified. Employees can use their work-life balance to accomplish whatever's important to them, such as travel, education, or experiences. With this approach, choice is offloaded to employees and eliminates friction for fulfillment. Leaders no longer have to manage reimbursements and receipts or cobble together multiple vendors to make everyone happy. With this established, we're now ready to motivate. We give companies a number of tools to align their business objectives directly with their employees' dreams and passions. They can contribute to employees' work-life balances through incentives, reward programs, and various fringe benefits and entitlement programs. For example, you can run sales contests through WorkLife's incentive programs, which will allow your reps to see each other's progress towards the objective and the personal goals that motivate them. When you're ready, just pay out the incentive in WorkLife and watch as your reps live out what matters to them. No more ordering or redeeming or coordinating or reimbursing. You can create anniversary and birthday programs to automatically reward and celebrate employees at key milestones. Employees can attach something personally meaningful to upcoming milestones, so they have something to look forward to. You can also make spot rewards and spiffs more meaningful by rewarding people through WorkLife and contributing directly towards the dreams, passions, and goals that motivate them and make them happy. Every initiative you create in WorkLife helps employees feel more connected to their work and more motivated to achieve their goals. When employees are happy and motivated, they're more productive and engaged at work. This leads to better business results for the company, as well as a more fulfilling and rewarding experience for your employees. If you're looking for the best way to improve employee happiness, productivity, and engagement, all while consolidating costs and maximizing impact, then WorkLife is the right solution for you. Book a demo or click to learn more about how we can help you create a more productive and flourishing work environment for your people with WorkLife.